This is the last morning of 2021. It's December 31st, and I got up this morning thinking, what's the year been like for me as a photographer? What have I learned? What have I experienced? And I was going through some of my pictures from throughout the year and landed on a couple pictures through each month of the year that kind of resonated with me. It got me thinking, well, what is a photograph? Why do I take photographs? What do I do with them? Some of them have never been shared with the world before. Yet when I look at each one, something starts to bubble up. Every one of these photographs brings a specific memory. They all were captured within the boundaries of Mission Trails Regional Park between these two mountains. And they tell a story, for me anyway. This is a photograph I took last January of 2021. I like to refer to this tree. I visited a lot. I refer to it, I've named it informally. It's called Anthony's tree. So, as I was putting this montage of photos together, of memories, I was surprised. I was struck that I wasn't able to find any in the month of February of this year within the park. I took lots of photos that month, but none from within the park. And it was surprising to me when I was looking and searching that I hadn't taken a photograph. I'm pretty certain I probably visited the park during that month, but I don't have a recollection of it. So in March, again, not a lot of photographs, but apparently I was out here and I took this video. I had several video clips that I was experimenting with, using my iPhone on a slider, practicing taking video of moving water down a stream. The month of April presented some interesting shifts within my photographic journey. It was in this month, April of 2021, April 17th in fact, that I set out on a project to document the life of a hawk, a fledgling hawk, in a nest on a cliffside within the park, and also the interactions with this fledgling hawk with its parents. The male and the female hawk would tend to the nest. So I would be out here many days, often every day in a row for a week, accumulating hundreds of hours of observing, documenting what was going on up on the cliff face. This one image here is far across the valley where the nest is. The female, unusually warm April day, the temperatures were close to 90 degrees, and she came in and sat and spread her wings and provided shade to the fledgling in the nest. And she sat there for hours. And I sat there for hours observing, watching, taking photographs. This is one of many where she just kept there and provided shade to the little one with the sun beating down onto her back and her doing what it is that we parents do for our kids all the time. This photo here, another day in April, I came out, parked in an area of the park that I parked many times to walk over toward where the nest is. When I came back, my car window was broken. And this is an image that I took of the broken glass. So I made art out of it. So in May, this picture was taken in the beginning of May, directly in front of where I'd been sitting for hours watching the hawks. There's a couple trees that were down in the valley in front of me. By this time I had progressed in my equipment to where I had a longer lens to look and document the hawks up on the nest. I was getting bored. Took my camera off the tripod with the long lens on it and started pointing it out in front of me, just tracking birds, and I captured this image. This is the very first bird image that I took with intention other than the hawks. By the time June's coming around, I'm exploring more and more with intention of taking pictures of other birds in addition to the hawks. The hawks are starting to fly, the fledglings out in the valley testing its wings. The parents are staying with it. There's a lot of interaction with the three of them now where the younger hawk is out and about. So while I'm there and I don't know where the hawks are, they might be over a ridge somewhere. I started experimenting and exploring, taking pictures of other birds. And this bird here showed up close to a bench that I had been sitting on a post. It's a California towhee. There are many of them in the park. Come to really appreciate the coloring within their feathers. There's something about towhees that I continue to photograph them when I get a chance in various settings. The same day as taking the picture of that towhee sitting on a post, I saw this flower. And there's something about it, drew me to it. It was right in the same area that I was sitting. I was not out looking for photo opportunities. I was there looking for hawks. And I saw this, and it spoke to me, and I took the picture. It's simply one flower. This is part of my photographic processes as I'm walking around, even now, today. Something will catch my eye, whether it's near or far away. Maybe it's the lighting, the coloring, the uniqueness of it. Maybe it's always been there, and this is the first time I'm pausing to look at it. I find that happens a lot, that I may have walked by something many times, not noticed it. In July, that's down near the water's edge. The water was pretty much becoming harder and harder to find along the river. So little pockets of still ponds were available still to observe. And along the water's edge one time, and I came across this frog just sitting still with the eyes up above the water level. I grabbed the image, took the picture, and it was becoming real apparent to me that these experiences are all happening in the midst of a pandemic. That by this time the pandemic had been going on for over a year. This is July of 2021. It's me and the frog. No one else around, nobody walking by. The connection, the solitude, the sense of not being isolated in the midst of a pandemic where so many things were happening in the world. A lot shows up here with this frog and the image of my memories of taking it, the crouching down on the ground to change the position of the camera, etc. It's like all these memories show up, and the amazement, the awe that I had at the time that I took it. And even now when I look at it, the awe. Best Picture award winning, that's not why I take photos. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. For me, it's being able to be there with that frog without disturbing it too much. So in August, I was near the Grinding Rocks within the park, fairly well-known location. Many youngsters, many kids and their families and their teachers will take trips down to the Grinding Rocks because there's so much historical significance. The indigenous peoples that were living here hundreds, if not 1,000 years ago, how they would make use of the rocks that were there along the river. There were two youngsters down there along the Grinding Rocks with their parents at the water's edge with all sorts of excitement, exploring the life that was within the water. The water's stagnant at this point of the year. Plenty of tadpoles and small snails and other critters. And these two young boys were not hesitant to reach in and explore and express excitement to the point that they invited me to come in and look also. And they directed my attention to this frog with a tail. They were all excited that a frog could have a tail. So thanks to these youngsters to pull my attention to it, allowing me to adopt the childlike view of it. One day in September, we were expecting rain in San Diego County. Here we are coming out of summer into fall. San Diego does not get a lot of rain. I came out into the park, and it was supposed to be a thunderstorm. So it'd already been expressing some thunder and lightning. So I came down, set the camera up, captured this image and was struck by how the branches of the tree reaching up into the sky were reminded me of how lightning comes down and what looks like it's coming down out of the sky. This image of the tree reaching up the scraggly branches without leaves on them, reaching skyward as though lightning is coming up out of the tree toward the sky. A week later, in October, this image of the dam, brightly lit by some sunshine, the storm that was moving through when I grabbed the image of the scraggly tree came through, and for months I'd been hearing stories that there were deer wandering around throughout the park. I felt like I was missing out, FOMO, fear of missing out. One day I'm walking back to the car and I encountered this guy, this buck deer up on the hillside in an area where I least expected to see a deer. And we stood eye to eye for several minutes before he got bored and wandered off, and he sauntered off. Wasn't though he was spooked by me or anything like that. We were just looking each other in the eye. While I was sorting through my photos to decide which photo from December might I want to share in this, I was torn between two. One I just took yesterday, a hermit thrush, and the other one I was able to document and capture of a hawk, a red-tailed hawk, a couple weeks ago. A hawk, what a great way to wrap up the year of what set me on my journey of photographing, documenting the life between these two mountains, starting in April 17th till now. But also, these photos that I've shown here represent only a small bit of what goes on here in the park. The bug life, the plant life, the fungi that's emerging now that the seasons are wet. The change that continues to happen daily, weekly, monthly within the park, along with all the humanity that's flowing through also. That's all part of what is struck with me. I don't take many photos here within the park of humans. Maybe I'll start that as the year starts to unfold, showing that. But humans certainly do impact the park, and the park impacts humans. We seem to get something from it, just from being out in nature and being able to experience life moving on out here, regardless of what's happening with the pandemic or other aspects of daily living.